Chapter 1. Shadows of Power. Isabella Romano stepped off the train and felt the pulse of the city beneath her feet. The streets were alive with noise and movement, a chaotic symphony that both excited and intimidated her. She clutched her suitcase tightly and took a deep breath. This was the start of a new life far from the quiet town she had always known. Every corner held possibility, but also an unspoken tension that made her heart race. Across the city, Matteo Vitale adjusted his tailored suit as he entered the grand hall. The chandelier above cast a golden glow over the room, illuminating faces filled with ambition and calculation. As the heir to the Vitale family, his every step was measured and watched. He carried the weight of his family's empire in the set of his jaw and the calm intensity of his gaze. Tonight, alliances would be discussed and loyalties tested, but Matteo's attention was drawn elsewhere when he noticed a new presence in the crowd. Their eyes met for the briefest moment near the entrance. Isabella felt a strange shiver run down her spine, if something unexplainable had shifted in the air. Matteo felt it too, a pull that defied logic or caution. Neither spoke, yet a connection lingered, quiet but insistent. As Isabella navigated through the bustling streets, she was unaware of the shadows watching over her. Danger existed here, threaded through the city in invisible lines. Matteo's world was dangerous, filled with secrets that could destroy anyone who wandered too close. And yet, in that brief glance, something fragile had been planted. She paused for a moment and looked up at the towering buildings around her. The city promised opportunity, adventure, and challenge. It also promised temptation and peril. Isabella did not yet know how deeply her life would intertwine with Matteo Vitale's, or how the quiet strength she carried would be tested in ways she could never imagine. Matteo returned to the conversation around him, but his mind kept drifting back to the girl who had entered the hall with curiosity in her eyes. In a world where trust was scarce and loyalty was currency, he felt an unfamiliar tug in his chest. For the first time, power and control seemed secondary to something else entirely, and so their worlds had collided, quietly but irrevocably. Shadows moved around them, but in that moment, both Isabella and Matteo had sensed that life was about to change. The city was vast, dangerous, and full of secrets, yet within it, something new, fragile, and impossible had begun. Chapter 2. Stolen glances. Isabella had begun to settle into the rhythm of the city, though it still felt foreign in ways she could not fully describe. Every morning, she walked the crowded streets, her senses alert to the swirl of life around her. She noticed the small things, the way the sunlight glinted off a shop window, the smell of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, and the hurried footsteps of people chasing lives far different from her own. Yet amidst all this, she felt watched, though she could not name by whom. Matteo, meanwhile, could not shake the memory of the girl with the curious eyes. Her presence lingered in his mind as he moved through meetings and social gatherings, his thoughts constantly returning to her laughter, her courage, and the ease with which she seemed to exist in a world so different from his own. He had seen many faces in the high society circles he frequented, but none had stirred something so quiet and persistent inside him. Their paths crossed again one afternoon in a narrow alleyway. Isabella had taken a shortcut through the city to reach a small cafe she had discovered, her mind lost in thoughts of her new life. A sudden commotion startled her. A group of men were arguing loudly, and one pushed a young boy against a wall, demanding something he clearly could not pay. Without thinking, Isabella stepped forward to intervene, her voice steady but firm. From the shadows, Matteo observed, tension coiling in his chest. He moved quickly, silently, positioning himself just in time to step between Isabella and the aggressors. A single commanding word from him was enough to make the men back down and retreat. Isabella turned toward him, eyes wide with surprise and a flicker of gratitude. "You shouldn't put yourself in danger like that," Matteo said, his tone calm, but carrying a weight that made her heart skip. "I couldn't just stand by," Isabella replied, her voice soft but unwavering. She felt a strange comfort in his presence, even though she had no idea who he really was. For a few moments, they simply looked at each other, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Neither knew what the future held, but both felt the stirrings of a connection that was growing in spite of circumstance. As they parted ways that day, Isabella could not help but glance back over her shoulder. Matteo did the same, disappearing into the crowd, but leaving an impression that would linger. Their worlds were different, dangerous in their own ways, yet something fragile had begun to form between them. In the days that followed, Isabella noticed Matteo's presence more often, fleeting but undeniable, and Matteo, despite the demands of his family and the darkness of his world, found himself searching for glimpses of her in every corner of the city. The attraction was undeniable, unspoken, and growing with every stolen glance. Chapter 3. Dangerous attraction is turned into weeks, and Isabella found herself seeing Matteo more often, though never in a way that allowed for proper conversation. Their encounters were brief: a shadow in a cafe, a figure at a crowded gallery, a glance across the street, but each one left her heart racing. She tried to tell herself it was nothing more than coincidence, yet there was a pull she could not ignore, a magnetic force drawing her toward him despite the unknown. Matteo struggled as well. Every time he saw Isabella, the calm he normally maintained slipped slightly. She was different from anyone he had ever met, and afraid, kind, and surprisingly perceptive. He found himself wanting to protect her, not because it was his duty, but because of something deeper he could not name. And yet the life he led was dangerous, a life built on violence, secrecy, and power. He knew that getting close to her could put her in harm's way, but the thought of staying away made his chest ache in ways he had long forgotten. One evening, Isabella stopped at a small flower shop, the soft light spilling onto the quiet street. Matteo lingered nearby, careful not to be seen. Watching her, she reached out to touch the petals of a pale pink rose, her fingers brushing lightly against the soft petals. The sight stirred something protective and gentle in him, a side of Matteo that few had ever seen. He stepped forward, appearing suddenly yet not threatening, and offered a simple greeting. "You shouldn't wander these streets alone at night," he said, his voice low but steady. Isabella blinked, startled but not frightened. There was something about the way he spoke, a quiet authority mixed with concern, that made her chest tighten. "I've managed so far," she replied lightly, though her heartbeat betrayed her calm. Matteo hesitated, searching for the right words. "I know, but sometimes people cannot manage alone." There was an unspoken weight in his gaze, a hint of the danger she could not yet see. Their conversation ended quickly, but neither wanted to part. Isabella felt an inexplicable trust in him, while Matteo felt an unfamiliar desire to slow time and savor these rare moments of normalcy. That night, Matteo returned to the Vitale estate, haunted by thoughts of her smile and the warmth she radiated. He knew that the more he allowed himself to be drawn in, the greater the risk. And yet, he could not stop. Isabella had awakened a part of him he had kept buried beneath duty, loyalty, and fear. For Isabella, the attraction was equally complicated. There was an intensity to Matteo that was both thrilling and terrifying. She felt herself drawn to him, in ways she could not rationalize. Yet a quiet voice in the back of her mind warned her to be careful. Still, when he looked at her, even for a fleeting moment, it was as if the rest of the city, the noise, and the shadows did not exist. Danger and desire were now intertwined, and neither could deny the tension growing between them. Every glance, every encounter, every word unspoken became a thread weaving them together in a bond that was as thrilling as it was forbidden. Chapter 4. Secrets Unveiled. Isabella had always trusted her instincts, but that day, her curiosity led her into a part of the city she had never dared to explore. She was following a lead on a local art exhibit when she stumbled across a scene that made her heart catch in her throat. Hidden behind a wrought iron gate, she saw Matteo speaking with men whose presence radiated menace. They were clearly discussing something serious, their words clipped and heavy with threat. Her pulse quickened. Something about the scene made her uneasy, and yet she could not tear her eyes away. She felt a sharp pang of fear and betrayal. The man she had been drawn to, whose gaze had stirred something deep inside her, belonged to a world far darker than she had imagined. Later, when she confronted him, her voice trembled despite her efforts to remain composed. "Matteo, what is this? Who are those men?" Her words were steady, but her chest tightened with every syllable. Matteo as her, a mixture of surprise and admiration flickering across his face. He had expected fear or retreat, but not the quiet courage in her eyes. He took a careful breath, knowing he could not hide the truth. "Isabella, I owe you honesty. I am part of a family, a dangerous family. The Vitale name carries weight and danger that I cannot escape. I never wanted you to be part of that world, but I cannot deny who I am." Isabella's mind raced, struggling to reconcile the man she had come to admire with the reality of his life. Fear threatened to cloud her judgment, but beneath it, something else stirred: an understanding, a respect for his honesty, and for the restraint he showed in protecting her. "I don't know if I can trust this," she admitted softly. "Everything I thought I knew. It feels different now." Matteo stepped closer, his presence both commanding and gentle. "I don't expect you to understand immediately. I only ask that you see me for who I am beneath the name, beneath the family. I want to protect you, Isabella. More than anything, I want you safe." She studied his face, searching for deception and finding none. In that moment, the danger surrounding him became real and tangible, yet his sincerity shone through. A bond had already begun to form between them, fragile but undeniable. As she walked away that day, her thoughts were a swirl of fear, confusion, and something else she could not yet name. She had glimpsed the darkness of Matteo's world, but she had also seen the humanity beneath it. And despite the danger, despite the secrets, her heart felt an unexplainable pull toward him, stronger than any fear. Matteo watched her leave, the weight of his family's legacy pressing on him. Yet for the first time in years, he felt a hope that perhaps love could exist in the midst of shadows. He would do everything to ensure her safety, even if it meant facing enemies, betrayals, and the very darkness he had spent his life mastering. The truth had been revealed, but instead of breaking them apart, it had begun to forge a fragile, dangerous connection that neither could ignore. Chapter 5. The first kiss. City was quiet that evening, the golden glow of streetlights reflecting off rain-slicked cobblestones. Isabella walked briskly, her thoughts consumed by Matteo and the revelation of his world. Fear still lingered, but beneath it, a growing warmth tugged at her chest. She could not deny how much she wanted to see him again, to understand the man behind the dangerous name. Matteo waited at their usual meeting place, a small park tucked away from the bustling streets. His eyes softened as he saw her approaching, her silhouette framed by the lamplight. He had struggled with his feelings, torn between caution and desire, but tonight the tension became impossible to resist. "Isabella," he said quietly, his voice carrying relief and something more tender. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." She stopped a few feet away, heart racing. "I've been thinking about you too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Every word felt fragile, as if the city itself could shatter their moment. For a while, they simply stood there, the distance between them charged with unspoken longing. Matteo took a step closer, his hand brushing against hers, sending a shiver through both of them. Neither spoke. Words felt unnecessary. The danger of his world, the weight of secrets, and the fear of what might come made the moment sharper, more urgent. And then, almost without warning, he leaned in. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, soft at first, full of hesitation and wonder. It was a kiss that spoke of hope, defiance, and a fragile trust. Isabella felt her fears melt away for a heartbeat, replaced by a warmth that made her forget the shadows of the city. Matteo pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her eyes. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. I didn't know if I should," Isabella whispered, a mix of excitement and fear in her tone. "You don't have to worry about that now," he said, his hand gently holding hers. "I'll protect you. Whatever comes, I promise you that." For a few stolen minutes, the world felt distant, irrelevant. Their hearts spoke louder than the danger around them, louder than the secrets they carried. In that first kiss, they discovered a bond neither could deny. A fragile but undeniable spark of love growing amid the chaos of Matteo's world. As they slowly parted, their foreheads resting together, Isabella realized that despite the risks, she could not stay away from him. Matteo felt the same. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that love could exist even in a world built on shadows, that perhaps it could survive, grow, and heal the wounds they both carried. That night, as the city slept around them, the first true connection between Isabella and Matteo was forged. A kiss that marked the beginning of something dangerous, tender, and irrevocably theirs. Chapter 6. Shadows of Betrayal. City had grown colder, the nights longer and filled with unease. Isabella and Matteo had spent their days together, in fleeting moments, stealing warmth wherever they could. But the world Matteo belonged to was never far behind, always lurking, always ready to strike. Word traveled faster than either of them expected. A rival mafia family had learned of their growing connection, and whispers of betrayal spread within Matteo's own circle. Faces he had trusted for years now seemed distant, their loyalty uncertain. He felt the weight of suspicion pressing down on him, making every step feel heavier. Isabella noticed the change immediately. Matteo was tense, his eyes scanning rooms and streets as though danger waited at every corner. "What's happening?" she asked one evening, worrying threading her voice as they sat in the small apartment Matteo had rented for her safety. Matteo hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "There are people who do not want us together, some within my family, some outside of it. I cannot always protect you the way I want to. Not if the betrayal is close to home." Fear clenched Isabella's chest, but she refused to show weakness. "Then let me help. I can't just hide and wait. If we face this together, maybe." Matteo silenced her with a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. "I cannot allow you to be involved in this, not yet. You are too important to me. I will handle it." His eyes darkened with the burden of his world, the danger of a life built on power and violence. But fate rarely waited for careful plans. One night, as Isabella returned from a late visit to her new job, she felt the prickle of eyes on her back. Footsteps followed her through the empty streets, shadows stretching across walls. Panic rose, but instinct took over. She ran, heart hammering, and suddenly Matteo was there, appearing from the darkness as if he had been waiting. "They found you," he said, urgency threading his voice. "We have to move now." In the chaos, the betrayal became clear. A trusted member of Matteo's inner circle had tipped off their enemies, putting Isabella directly in harm's way. Matteo's anger was sharp but controlled, his focus solely on getting her to safety. They fled into the night, weaving through narrow alleyways and deserted streets, every corner a potential threat. By the time they reached a safe house, Isabella was trembling, her hands clutching Matteo's jacket as if it were a lifeline. "Why would they do this?" she whispered, voice breaking. "They fear what they cannot control," Matteo replied, his jaw tight. "They fear us. They fear what we have together." In that moment, Isabella understood the full weight of loving Matteo. Their bond was no longer just a matter of hearts. It was a dangerous act of defiance in a world that demanded obedience, loyalty, and fear. And yet, even in the face of betrayal, their connection remained unbroken. That night, as the city slept uneasily around them, they held each other close. Matteo's hands were steady, but his mind raced with strategies and threats. Isabella's heart beat against his chest, a quiet reminder that love could still exist, even when shadows moved to tear it apart. Chapter 7. Love in the crossfired safe house was quiet, almost eerily so, nestled in the heart of a part of the city. One thought to look. Isabella and Matteo had slipped into this small refuge like shadows, leaving the chaos and betrayal behind. If only for a moment, the outside world, with its threats and violence, felt distant, yet it was never truly gone. Days turned into nights as they adjusted to the confines of their hiding place. With nowhere to go and little to distract them, they began to discover each other in ways they never could before. Matteo, usually composed and guarded, allowed himself to relax around Isabella. His laughter, rare and genuine, filled the small space, easing some of the tension that had built up over the past weeks. Isabella, in turn, began to see the layers beneath Matteo's imposing exterior. She noticed the tenderness in the way he handled even the smallest tasks, the subtle expressions that betrayed his inner turmoil, and the moments when his guard fell, revealing vulnerability he rarely showed anyone. She began to understand that the man she loved was not only a figure of danger and power, but also a person capable of profound gentleness. One evening, they sat together near a small window, the city lights flickering in the distance. Matteo's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. "We are alive, Isabella. That is all that matters tonight," he said softly. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Alive, yes, but I want more than that. I want us to live, truly live, even if it means facing fear together." Their conversation stretched into the night, filled with shared dreams, whispered fears, and confessions they had kept hidden from the world. Isabella revealed her desire for a life full of simple joys, untainted by the darkness that surrounded Matteo. Matteo, in turn, shared fragments of his past, the expectations placed upon him, and the constant weight of responsibility that never left him. In the safety of each other's presence, their love deepened. Small gestures, a brush of the hand, a lingering gaze, the warmth of a shared blanket became anchors in a life otherwise dictated by danger. Each touch, each glance, carried meaning, a silent vow that they would protect each other, no matter the cost. And yet, the shadows of Matteo's world were never far away. The threat of betrayal lingered, like a storm on the horizon, a constant reminder that peace was fleeting. But for now, they allowed themselves to be human, to fall deeper in love, and to savor the fragile moments that danger could not touch. In the quiet hours, with the city asleep around them, Isabella and Matteo discovered that love could be both a refuge and a weapon. It gave them strength to face the outside world, courage to confront what was coming, and hope that, even in a life full of peril, they could carve out a space for happiness together. Chapter 8. The reckoning quiet of their hiding place shattered in the dead of night. Explosions echoed in the distance, followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Matteo's instincts took over instantly, his body moving with practiced precision. He grabbed Isabella's hand and pulled her to the floor, pressing her close as the walls trembled around them. "They've found us," he said, his voice low but urgent. "Stay behind me, and don't move." Isabella's heart pounded, but she did not resist. She had come to trust him completely, and now she understood the gravity of the world he inhabited. Every step he took, every command he gave, was meant to protect her. The danger surrounding them was real, immediate, and unforgiving. Through the chaos, Matteo navigated the streets with skill born of years in his family's shadowy empire. They moved through alleys, dodging gunfire and threats at every turn. Isabella clung to him, fear mingling with the adrenaline that surged through her veins. In the midst of danger, she realized how deeply she loved him, how much she relied on his strength, and how much courage she had found in herself. When they reached a temporary safe zone, Matteo finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. He turned to her, his face streaked with grime and exhaustion, but his eyes held the same intensity she had seen in him since their first meeting. "We survived," he said simply, though the weight of what had just happened lingered in his tone. Isabella touched his cheek, tracing the faint scratches and bruises that told of battles fought in the shadows. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Again, and I always will," Matteo replied, his hand holding hers tightly. "No matter what comes, I will protect you. That is a promise I will never break." The attack had revealed more than just the enemies they faced. It had exposed the cracks and vulnerabilities within Matteo's family, the betrayals that had put them both at risk. Yet it had also shown the depth of their bond, the unspoken trust that had grown between them in the fire of danger. As the city outside settled into an uneasy silence, they held each other close. The adrenaline faded, leaving behind exhaustion and the shared understanding that their love was stronger than any threat. The reckoning had come, but it had not broken them. Instead, it had forged a bond tempered by fear, courage, and unwavering devotion. Matteo knew that more challenges lay ahead, more enemies would rise, and the shadows would never fully recede. But for now, in this stolen moment of peace, he and Isabella could feel the resilience of their hearts and the unbreakable connection that had carried them through the storm. Chapter 9. Choosing the hearth. Aftermath of the attack left Matteo restless. The streets were quiet, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. His family expected him to reclaim control, to continue the life he had been born into, but his heart pulled him in a different direction. Every thought of Isabella reminded him of the world he longed for without violence, fear, or betrayal. He found her in the small apartment they had come to call their sanctuary. She was sitting by the window, the city lights casting a soft glow on her face. Matteo watched her for a moment, the quiet bravery she had shown in the face of danger filling him with awe. "I can't keep you in this world," he admitted, his voice low. "It's not fair to you, and it's not safe. I've spent my life bound by duty, by fear, by family obligations that I never chose. But you've shown me what it means to live, to love, to hope." Isabella looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of worrying and determination. "Matteo, I love you. I don't care about the danger. I care about us. But you have to choose what you truly want, not what your family expects, not what your name demands." He took her hands in his, gripping them tightly. The decision was agonizing. Choosing to leave his life behind meant defying powerful forces, risking the wrath of his family, and abandoning the empire his father had built. Yet the thought of losing Isabella, the one person who had awakened his heart, was unbearable. "I choose you," he said finally, his voice firm and resolute. "Everything I am, everything I have, I want it with you. The rest, the empire, the rules, the shadows, they don't matter if we're together. I will face whatever comes for us, but I will never let go of you." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes as she embraced him. "Then we face it together," she whispered, her voice full of hope and courage. In the days that followed, Matteo took steps to sever ties with the dangerous parts of his world, carefully navigating the politics and betrayals that had long bound him. It was not easy, and the threat of retribution remained. But for the first time, he felt free to love without fear, to build a life with Isabella, and to define his own destiny. That night, as they stood together on the balcony overlooking the city, Matteo held Isabella close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his. The choice had been made, and it was theirs. The heart had triumphed over duty, love over fear, and hope over shadows. In that quiet moment, with the city stretching endlessly before them, they understood that their bond had not only survived the darkness, but had grown stronger because of it. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it was theirs to face together. Chapter 10. A new dawn. City awoke slowly, bathed in the soft glow of morning light. Isabella and Matteo stood together on the balcony of their new home, a place far removed from the shadows and violence that had once defined their lives. The streets below bustled with ordinary life, simple and unremarkable, yet it felt miraculous to them both. Matteo held Isabella close, feeling the warmth of her body and the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. The scars of the past still lingered in subtle ways, moments of fear, memories of danger, and the weight of family obligations, but they no longer controlled their lives. Every choice, every step forward, was theirs to make together. "I never imagined it could be like this," Isabella said softly, her head resting against his chest. Quiet, safe, and yet full of hope, Matteo pressed a kiss to her forehead. "We fought for this. We chose each other, and that made all the difference. Nothing can take that away." They spent the day exploring the small joys of life that had once seemed so distant. Morning sunlight streaming through the windows laughter shared over coffee, the simple pleasure of holding hands while walking through the park. Each moment was a reminder that love, when nurtured and protected, could thrive even in the most unlikely places. The city, once a place of fear and power struggles, now felt like a canvas for their future. Matteo had left behind the world of shadows that had defined him, choosing love over fear, heart over duty. Isabella, who had once been drawn into danger by circumstance, now stood confidently by his side, her courage and resilience a constant source of strength. As night fell, they sat together on their balcony again, watching the lights of the city twinkle below. Matteo held her hands in his, their fingers intertwined, and they shared a quiet smile that spoke of trust, commitment, and unwavering love. "We have a lifetime to build," Isabella whispered. "Yes," Matteo agreed, his voice steady and full of promise. A lifetime together. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer defined them. Their love had been tested by danger, betrayal, and the weight of an unforgiving world, yet it had endured and grown stronger. In each other, they had found refuge, courage, and a future that belonged solely to them. As the first light of dawn touched the city, Isabella and Matteo understood the truth they had discovered together. Love could survive the darkest shadows, and hearts brave enough to choose it could create a new dawn. No matter the world that had tried to keep them apart,